We are shows what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Welcome to Shows What You Know, your television podcast where we take all of your favorite shows and we break them down into nothing. Well, maybe the bad ones, we break them down. The bad ones get broken down into nothing. The good ones are like broken down into delicious cotton candy. I am Jim Scampoli.
I am Jacob Burrows, and speaking of breaking down, I mean, that is what this show is all about. If you don't think we're into what this show does, just look at my wall. This is what we're all about, putting stuff on walls and connecting them with string. I'm Jacob Burrows, and I'm really into string.
Yeah, look at my wall. It's green. Isn't that what all the cool kids do these days? Everyone's got a fucking studio in their house, so why shouldn't we? Everyone has their own channel. Everyone does their own thing, no matter if people are watching or not. Now that's done, we'll be discussing Netflix new show, American Vandal.
Yeah, and everyone thinks they're a detective as well, so that ties in, I guess. Everyone thinks they're on the case. Everyone thinks they can crack it, and it's, caused some bad stuff where mob mentality makes you go after the wrong people, but it's also caused some great stuff like American Vandal. This show, oh gosh, I started out so skeptical to it, and I'm gonna see if the technology allows us to do, well, I should have prepared for this, but to just quickly grab what they do in the show, and I'm gonna pull up a fucking text message, all social media style, all this and that style. I'm gonna show what I said to Jim Scampoli when we originally, oh fuck it, this really should have prepared for this shit. Excuse me, yes, I'm gonna shit. Yeah. So I'm gonna fucking show everyone at home. Yeah, this works. Yeah. So on August whatever the fuck, Jacob Burrows was messaging Jim Scampoli about their supposed show, because everyone has a show these days. They call themselves Shows What You Know. What idiots. So Jim Scampoli said, do you want to read your part? Do you want to read your part, Jim?
Yes, but I can't, because then it goes away when I talk. Sweet. I'm not sure if it would be good for the show, but I watched all of American Vandal last night. It's a Netflix show, parody of a making murderer type show. And then now the screen went away from me, but continue.
Just click it. Click the screen. It should stay there. So this technology we have.
Yes, we're learning things. We're learning.
We don't have the production value of American Vandal.
Parody of making a murder type shows, and I thought it was great.
I would be kind of lost since I never watched that type of show, but sounds perfect for a Jim Scampoli quick take video.
And yeah, because I didn't even see your second reply, and I don't know if you could tell, I was annoyed by your reply.
Yep.
The first reply. I just said, It's just a true crime documentary, basically. God damn it already.
And I said, yeah, I've never watched those ever. So I was wrong. Oh, it's an infinite loop here. I was wrong. I'll admit it. But my apprehension was well-founded, I feel, because when you say, and I'd even seen like some promo shots, and it's like it's a true crime parody, but it's about dicks. And every review I've read starts with like, I thought this was gonna be dumb as fuck, or like, I thought this was gonna overwear its welcome after a bit, and basically, it's genius, and I'm glad I watched it, because just watching one episode makes you watch the rest, and that's basically what we're here to discuss, how they managed to do that with such a silly concept.
Well, see, I mean, I get the idea of how could they make this a series, but I don't get when I saw the trailer, I immediately thought it looked great. I mean, it was like, this is a great idea. This is awesome. So I don't quite get the, like, I'm above dick jokes attitude that all these people want to have.
Well,
like you, for example.
I would never say I'm above dick jokes. It's honestly more about the format for me of the true crime, because I've been through this before. I've been through this with Making a Murderer. Everyone was raving about that as well.
Off, but you sound like you're underwater right now.
Ah, shit.
Sorry.
That's fine.
I had to interrupt your thought.
Well, it was a shit thought. I was just defending myself from these stupid things I said in the past, which I regret, which I'm full of regret for. Does it sound any better now? Or is it the same shape?
It's the same.
Okay, well, we're gonna change some settings then. This is entertaining. This is entertainment, everybody. It's the modern communication age to do it. All
Well, I
right.
mean, hey, we're talking across the ocean, the country and the ocean.
Appropriately, I do sound like I'm underwater then, so that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yes. Now you sound a million times better. Thank you.
American Vandal is a great show, and I'm stupid. I'm a bad person for thinking it wasn't. But there's a lot of shows like this, like Making a Murderer, Jinx, Serial, which is a podcast. I never consumed any of those because I didn't want to, and I had no like intention of doing so. It wasn't like an active like dislike. It was more like I don't know. I just never did it, and that's why I felt like, oh, it's gonna be half dick jokes, which I like, and there's
Mhm.
gonna be half jokes about true crime, which I don't like. That's what I thought. But I mean, I
Okay.
was wrong. So
Fair.
we move on.
Yeah, I never got into Serial. I did watch The Jinx and I did watch Making a Murderer. Serial, it was like it blew up, and then I heard about it kind of late, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. Mostly because I didn't like. It's not that I'm against true crime, but I don't like people thinking they're gonna go solve the crime. I like
Yeah.
like that's where I'm like, all right, this is like real people's lives. Like, to me, a documentary is a little different, and I mean, I'm sure the Serial podcast is great. I mean, it's the reason why everyone loved it so much. But I don't know, a documentary I feel is just a little different because it's like done and I don't know, it's more like a movie and you're seeing the evidence and seeing the people. I'm sure you could do it the same with a podcast, but the podcast, it just felt the way all I picked up from it was how everyone thought they were an investigator. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pretend
Yeah.
that I'm an investigator. And even Making a Murderer and The Jinx to a lesser extent, it does bring out kind of a dirty feeling that we're consuming these people's lives
Yes.
in a binge watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I'm going to spend the next 10 hours over 3 days judging and consuming this person's life and making my own thought. And then up on to the next. There's a new episode of Supergirl to watch.
I'm going to say, yeah, you're a murderer and you're not better just because you're more well informed. You're still making up your mind, probably without any real evidence. At least that's my, from the outside look at it. And as we know from American Vandal, as soon as you're on the inside, you start thinking differently. But yeah, I think that was that dirty feeling that kept me away from all of that. So in a way, this is perfect because it's fiction. I don't have to feel bad about what's happening in the show because it's not for realsies. I'm sorry if I surprised everyone. No, it's a mockumentary. Everybody at home, it's brilliantly put together. Mockumentary is what it is.
Yes, and we're not going to get any spoilers or specifics yet, but
Yes.
I will say that by the end of this show, this goofy dick joke parody, it kind of expresses those similar thoughts about this genre.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes it really, really interesting. So yeah, like I've watched through a lot of it. It's surprising how quick I went from like, no, I never that type of show, not for me, thank you very much, to like, well, I can't sit through this whole intro to get to the episode. Like, clearly, I'm skipping this American Vandal intro, even though it's like it's not a long one. It's like 20 seconds, and I'm like, skip, skip, skip. Okay, now I get to see another talking head. Now I get to see another 3D animatic of what could possibly have happened as the investigation goes on.
Well, and yeah, I think that's what's really great about the show is that it does flip it and it becomes as addictive as any of those true crime shows. Oh my God, I lost him. I gotta get him back. He's coming back.
Yeah, we're basically rife with technical difficulties today, everybody. Anyway, what the fuck was I saying? It's great.
Well,
Do you have a thought?
What I was saying, like you were saying how, you were skipping through the intro to get through these episodes. And I was saying, yeah, that's what I didn't expect going into this. I expected it to be like a funny show and a nice, like, piss take on these, taking the piss on these true crime documentaries. I didn't expect to be caught up in the mystery where, yes, I'm marathoning the show much like I would be watching Making a Murderer, because I'm like, oh shit, I got to see what happens next. So it's really impressive that they're able to do that.
Yes, exactly. It's like all in the first episode, we're introduced to everything we need, and they have time to like make us care. The main character is basically a dick, but even just in the first episode, they make us care. Like they get to this little talk he has about his girlfriend, which is super endearing, where like they make him dumb, but like he has genuine emotion in his heart, and he is sympathetic basically because he's been framed for this whole crime that we think he didn't commit, and there's some intrigue about that, whether or not he did it as it moves on. But all of the stuff that's is necessary for the show is established in the first episode. Especially the realism is what I didn't expect, because basically, especially in a mockumentary, you expect the characters to be kind of larger than life or something. But basically, it's almost like The Office, and there's just one David Brent. Like everyone else is just regular people suffering through this stuff, or in this case, it's all built around this mystery. And that's the thing that really makes it work, because they become real characters, not just jokes, and they have genuine emotions. And I would like, if we're not being hyperbolic enough, I'd say this is the best, definitely the best teen drama of 2017, possibly best new show, I would say, although that sets expectations unrealistically high. It's almost like we're going to do a Stranger Things on this one when it comes around next year. Maybe everyone will have too high expectations, or maybe we're setting your expectations too high, but it has, the competition is like Riverdale, so it's doing very well up against that.
I agree, and I was actually going to say the same thing. I was going to say that it doesn't, it's not apparent in the beginning, because in the beginning, the whole show is leaning into this making a murderer true crime documentary style, but it like sneaks up on you that it's a teen drama, and it kind of isn't really apparent until like 3 or 4 episodes in. I mean, it's silly, and they're getting into weird, high school drama. But then once you start to get more familiar with, like, say, the people behind the camera, you're like, oh, wait, this is just, this could be a Riverdale show. This could be some CW show, but it's told through this specific style and through this mystery of who drew the dicks.
Yes.
And it really does hit on every level. And it got to the point where in the beginning, I was just thinking, like you said, even though I thought it looked good, I did think like, oh, 8 episodes. All right. That's kind of a lot for this. But then by the end, as I was going through it, all I kept thinking is like, just please stick the landing. Please stick the landing. And I'll say that they nailed it through the whole thing. It's, like I'd said in one of our chats online, or I think I said on social media, and I know we're bringing in the praise here, but I said it's almost a perfect show.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the only reason I'm like hesitant is that this is how you overhype people, or this is how you make yourself hate something later because you were too excited about it in the moment, and then you're like, they tricked me. But we're cynical if we're like, they tricked us earlier, because it's not really good. Nothing's really going to affect me that much. And I mean, it's really helped by a lot of shows not managing to do good, especially with young actors and with this type of drama, not managing to do good shows about that. A lot of people not doing it well, and they got this realism. They also, I mean, they're not just competing with these shows. I also made a list here of things that it manages to do that The Night Of failed at. The Night Of was HBO show, I think. It was on HBO, of basically a crime being solved. And here's 3 things that this dick parody show did better. First off, they make this show about how the system chews you up and spits you out. And like that's the whole deal. They don't, like, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, because it's consistent with the genre that they're parodying. They don't give 100% secure answer, because we're in the perspective of the main character doing a documentary, and he can't be 100% sure about it. So they don't really do that, but they really make it instead the central point about what happens to this character when he's ostracized. And it sounds too serious, but basically they do it better than The Night Of, because The Night Of was heavy-handed about it. I did like that show, but they didn't do it very well. Number
I
two, this show says something significant about the court of public opinion, which we also mentioned, that they kind of managed to make it about how we all think we're investigators, and it sort of levels internal criticism at itself. The fictional characters making this show within like the show also critique themselves for having gone too far at points, and like of course this show within the show goes viral, and like everyone's input makes it a very different thing that's happening, and it goes into how we online track people down and, you know, hang them out and get them fired from their jobs and so on, that type of thing. So it does that better than the night of. And finally, they make it about more than just the mystery. And as I already mentioned, they leave it open, but they manage to leave it open in a satisfying way, because the night of tried that too, but here they actually managed to do it.
I think you nailed it. I think you just spelled it out on how this show puts the night of to shame.
Yes. Such a specific one. No one remembers the night of, I would assume. So, but it's still in my mind. So, yeah, as we were saying, it has this unexpected realism that just makes it like that's the source of the good drama and realism, but it's also the source of the comedy, basically, because they take this shit so seriously, and then you forget that it's about something totally ridiculous, about who drew a bunch of dicks and got expelled from school from it, or, well, Dylan got, but, like, who really did it? That's the thing, but they get so into the investigation, so that's
yes, and
great.
And you're right. Like, the smartest thing about the comedy is they let the absurd situation be the humor. And of course there are some ridiculous characters, but then they let the ridiculous characters be the ridiculous characters. It's not every single person has to like have a like funny line every time or try to tag everything they say. They let everything be more organic, where you could totally expect a show like this, since the situation's so outrageous, they would be like, let's just let every character be outrageous. And next thing you know, every character's got a one-liner and they're clearly ad-libbing, and scenes are going on too long because they're tagging jokes and left and right. But it's so like tightly plotted and like specific and feels real with an insane situation, which kind of helps explain the ridiculousness of the style and the editing and the documentary of the show. I don't know. I'm just really impressed with how well it all comes together.
Yeah.
And especially for like, it's the right amount of episodes. It's like you said, it's fairly left. It's left kind of open, but in a satisfying way. The mystery keeps you engaged and the characters you care about. And it's like, these are obvious things it feels you should do in a TV show, but you don't always see that. And to pick on Riverdale again, it's like Riverdale thinks to make a dark teen drama, they have to have murder and intrigue. But it's like you could take something like someone spray painting dicks on cars, and it's way more interesting and feels way more real than what they're trying to do with their teen drama.
Yeah, absolutely. They like ratchet up the stakes to the impossible, and it's all melodramatic. And here it's like the most dramatic moments are like awkward in a way. Like if two characters are in a fight or something, like they don't have to have the swelling music. They can actually just make it a good, believable scene between these characters. I actually had a quote about what you mentioned, that they don't feel the need to turn it over completely into total mockumentary. From one of the show creators, who said that they ended up cutting a lot of the funniest jokes because basically this is a quote, there aren't many characters on the show who are funny in their own right. It's mostly fairly believable kids in ridiculous situation. This is in an interview to Mashable from Perot, I think it should be pronounced, one of the showrunners. We hope and strive for the humor to come from the seriousness with which these kids take the case. And as well, he said that, as I said, a lot of the jokes, the funniest jokes, ended up on the cutting room floor because they wanted all the humor to come from a really real place and from the investigation, and they didn't want it to tip over into mockumentary. So they do give Dylan some lines that feel kind of mockumentary or great tags, because he is this over the top kind of dumb character who will say stupid stuff and it's hilarious. But as like they've also said that they had to cut out when like Peter or Sam or someone said something really funny as a tag to a scene, either because it was in the script or because it was improvised, because a lot of it was improvised. They just cut that out because it felt like too funny, too like tipping the scales over into we're making fun of the situation rather than dragging you into it.
That's interesting. That's got to be really hard to do as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I have way more respect for that, because like I mean, we've both made stuff, and sometimes you fall in love with your, whether it be your own writing or a shot, or especially if you're making a comedy and you're loving these jokes, it's got to be really hard to stay true to that, and it shows, and it's better for it. So I really appreciate that they went through and did that.
Yeah. And speaking of the improvising, I think that aspect's really interesting, because you can't help but wonder when you're watching a show like this. Like, for example, The Office, parts of it feels like it might have been improvised, the original version, but in the end, no, it was all scripted. They just kind of had this idea of the mockumentary flow of it. But in this case, the very first shot that they shot was basically them saying, okay, Tyler, you have 40 minutes to interview Jimmy. So our main interviewer got 40 minutes to interview the main character, and like the guy playing the main character had no idea what the questions were going to be. They just had this information given to them about what the characters like knew in that situation from their point of view, and they did that with all the characters. Like what's his name, Alex Trimboli, who is the witness. He just knew what he saw, but he doesn't know like anything else than that, and he knows like he's exaggerating a bit probably and stuff like that, but he doesn't, like, no one has the full piece of the puzzle. They just have their characters' inputs, so in that way it's almost like an improv scene already, or like a role-playing game or something where you're bouncing off each other. So basically, yeah, they just shot a bunch of interviews, and they did that throughout, doing like the first take of each scene. They did like an improv version and then went through with the script, which is super daring and interesting.
Yeah, no, that sounds very cool. Because I mean, I know I kind of mentioned improv before, and I said it kind of in a negative light. It's not to say that I don't like improv, but I was more referencing a lot of modern comedies where there's clearly things that run on and they don't reel it in. But obviously, some of the best stuff can come together on set when people are in character, like doing their thing. So it's just nice when something can be reeled in and kind of more targeted than feeling like we're just sitting there waiting for someone to come up with another, like, do you know what you look like? You look like this pop culture thing mixed with this pop culture thing plus an ass. So
yes, and a butt too. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, they like, and they also, I like that they wouldn't tell the people filming it the actual blocking of like who was going to say what, so they kind of have to search with the camera. Okay, this character was talking, let's zoom into this and that. So from that, they clearly got a lot of the bits and pieces and snippets that could then be like used to make it feel more casual or more real, and then also they have their script to lean back on, because it's a very strong script as well, I would imagine, because it became this show which has a great story to it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? You need to watch this show. And I mean, even from your initial point of view, like not seeing some of these latest rage true crime documentaries, do you think that hindered it all for you, or it still worked, right?
No, not at all. It actually made me want to watch some of those, except I'm gonna be kind of like off kilter, because it's all about like murdering and raping people now, I assume, and I'm gonna be, where's the wholesome fun? Where's Alex Trimboli? And I'm gonna be crying, and like it might tear me up in that way, but no, it like, I know there's some specific type references that I wouldn't have gotten, but actually, like, I've watched a lot of documentaries, even if they weren't true crime documentaries, and I can appreciate like that angle of it. So no, I think it works really well, even if you're not into this type of show, even if you're not into teen shows. Like it's just across the board better than you would expect it to be from hearing the concept, and y'all should go watch it.
Agreed. So should we get a little bit into spoilers, or what do you think?
Yeah, yeah, we should. Well, let me mention one thing. I like that they balanced it with the mystery. Like, obviously, we're saying all this about drama and stuff, but the mystery is obviously the main driving force. And I'm also not known for loving mysteries, and yet they totally made it work for me. And as we were saying, it's like because the characters are believable. Like, I guess it goes hand in hand. It's almost like when I watch a mystery, I feel like, well, who murdered them? Who cares? It's going to be one of these characters. And then this is a show that actually manages to make it about more than just the mystery, because it's about these characters and everything we mentioned, but still the mystery is the main and a big driving force. So yeah, so it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely. So now it's time for the spoilers.
Spoilers. Yes.
And not to say that, I mean, I feel like even if you know, it's still worth watching, but it's obviously, in my opinion, anything's better if you don't know. But I still think it works either way. I mean, because one thing they do handle really well, and it's a nice dig. It works as a just a watching device, because they're ending with these good cliffhangers that make you want to watch the next episode. But it's a nice parody of that's what these shows do. These other shows are always like, and then we found the blood sample, and then it's like credits. You're like, I got to see the next one. But then the next one, it's not really a big deal. But it's like, I thought that was a big deal. But they start to do that really well, especially in the back half of this season, I guess, where they're hitting you with these cliffhangers. And here I am, like, all right, I'm just gonna watch this show all in a day. I'm just gonna watch them all. That's what I'm doing. And I mean, not that there's a lot to go through. Like, we don't have to go through episode by episode. But the way, I mean, I like how it all comes together. Like we said, it's left fairly open, but it's also kind of a stamp, like this is what went down.
Yeah.
But now I'm seeing people are treating this like these other shows, and people are like looking for details and arguing their theories.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not what the show's about. So stop that.
Well, I guess that's fine. But I mean, it's very interesting and meta, if you will, because obviously that's what happens in the show, too, when the documentary suddenly between episodes goes viral and everyone online has theories, and that totally affects it. I loved how much that affected it, and it made it so they couldn't go and shoot in the school and everything, all the conflicts coming from that. And like just the little details, like when he's on the phone with the lawyer and is like, excuse me, who are you? And he's like, oh, I'm Peter, I'm making the documentary. It's like, what? Oh, it's a true crime documentary, kind of like Serial. And there's a break and he's like, that's a terrible idea.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
I will say, when that episode happened, when it started out and it's like the documentary's online and it's viral, that's when I started telling myself, all right, here's where the wheels fall off. This is where it's going to get kind of shitty.
Yeah.
But it didn't. I was surprised. But I totally expected, like, they ran out of like ideas to fill these episodes. So now we're going to have to go into social media, but it didn't. They kept it. They kept it on the tracks, and it went through. I do have to say, my favorite character was Mr. Kraz, the cool teacher, the teacher that wants to be cool with everyone. Yeah. Because, I mean, we know these teachers, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly we all had teachers like this in our school, and it just played so well because he's just the guy that's like, he's skateboarding. And it's funny because I didn't have social media, obviously, when I was in high school, to date myself, but it's funny to think of the cool teacher, but throw in Twitter with it. And he's tweeting polls like, do you think Brad and Donna are going to break up? And, overstepping his bounds, trying to be cool guy, like talking about going to Drake and going to see Skrillex And then I think he has some like it runs that line like we talked about of being more mockumentary, because then Mr. Krabs is saying like, I had to tell Brad like she's too good for you. You know, you're not good. You're not good looking. You shouldn't be with this girl. But it works because he's one of those crazy characters. But I loved him so much. He was my favorite. And they use him the right amount where he's not in it a ton.
Yeah, and I think they make it a very deliberate choice where at first it feels almost like he's not real. There's like that part doesn't feel real, and then he gets fired for doing and saying the stuff he says and does, which makes you feel even more like it's real. And I almost feel like that's his function in the show, apart from what he actually does. He like makes it real, and when it goes viral, it's not just ha ha ha. It's like it has real life consequences for this idiot.
Yeah, because he even has a comment where they're talking about, I think, Coach Rafferty, but they're talking about Shapiro, the Spanish teacher, who is the one main accuser against Dylan.
I hate her.
And Krabs is like, you should hear what Coach Rafferty says about her, and that guy's roofied people. It's like a teacher talking about a coach that's roofied people. But you're right. Yeah, there's like a consequence, and he ends up fired. So we check in with him a little bit, and he's just, unemployed dude, as he would be, or as he should be.
Yeah, and he's gone rogue. Now he'll tell them anything, he says, and they're like, "Well, you were kind of doing that before, right?" But yeah, that stuff's great. And I mean, the reason it goes viral, the main reason is obvious. That we need there to be a turn of the student body needs to turn positive. They're all like, fuck yeah, who drew the dicks? Hashtag and theories and that. So he can become a local little celebrity just so that then at the end he can be totally crushed, which is such a heartbreaking moment when he sees the documentary, the start of the documentary, surrounded by all these fake friends. And he sees them all calling him an idiot. And it's funny for even us seeing it. And then we saw people saying that in the first episode. And now we recognize those people in those talking heads from the rest of the show. Like Gail, is her name right? She's there, who then is obviously a part of the investigation. So, that was handled really well.
Yes. Yeah. And the way that plays out, and the way it's like, because what's really well done, like it's casted really well because they do feel like kids, because I mean they are younger. It's not like, I mean, maybe the actor plays Dylan might be a little older, but most of them
25.
Yeah, he kind of looks the oldest, because like especially the main kids, they look like just teenagers for the most part. Whether they are or not, I don't know, but at the very least they look age appropriate. So when it comes down to like, yeah, Dylan sees the documentary, but the bigger thing too is that even once he's cleared, this teacher, Miss Shapiro, which understandable, Dylan's the problem kid in class, and his brother was a problem, but she's supposed to be the teacher, and it's an important thing when a teacher or authority or an adult lets a kid down. And like that, to me, it was like heartbreaking. And it's like, here's this show. Like, I know we keep hitting this point, but this show's about who spray painted the dicks. But then Dylan doesn't even get his satisfaction, because even after he's cleared, she still thinks he's a piece of shit. And that he's always going to be a piece of shit. And then the parallel to that is Krista, the, what was she, class president?
Sure, she was everything. Class president.
And she was activist and all that. And like the show leaves it that it's probably her that did it, but we see it's a similar thing, because she was let down by an adult. She was let down by a teacher, someone who's like, their job is kind of to teach, obviously, and have your back. And I liked that. Like, you see how it affects both of them and the way they react to it. And it's similar just in general, like even being an adult, just let down by authority. If you go back to, like you were saying, the night of, it's, the similar great theme, and it's so strong in the way it finishes the show.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it all, speaking of Krista and everything, it almost hints that, what's his name, Kratz, or what was the teacher's name?
Which one? Krabs? Rafferty?
Kratz? Yeah. The bad teacher, who's bad. He he says he's roofied people, but and that kind of is like a red herring, but then it has these characters and it goes in all these different directions as the investigation goes in different directions, and then it kind of ties back to something that was just mentioned way earlier, and is that the big deal? And then like, no, that's not the big deal, but then other things, and I don't know, it's just a really well constructed mystery as far as I see it, because yeah, as you said, Krista probably did do it probably because of the coach, what he said to her, and we still don't know what he said to her. It's the fucking lost in translation situation, which I love, even though it's frustrating. But we like, because our imagination is worse than anything they could put in the show.
Absolutely.
And it's the way she behaves that makes us like believe it even more, I think. But still, it's kind of left open. I mean, it's fiction, so it's not like reality. That's why we don't need to make theories anymore. But people like making theories just as much about fictional shows as they do about non-fictional shows. So I guess that's why people are still hashtagging the janitor did it.
Yes, yeah, and and yeah, and especially seeing a student who's like top of the class being let down in a certain way, and even someone who's the class clown, like thought of as the idiot, and kind of being stuck with those labels. And of course, I mean, there's more to the show than this, because and even like if it was just that, it's a great show. But then when there's like comments on just making like these types of documentaries and how it affects people's real lives, and even like the filmmakers and how they're using people's stories just kind of for their own gain. And yeah, like is it Peter, the main kid?
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, he'll kind of put himself on blast, so he thinks it should be fine then to put everyone else on blast. But it's when you're in real life and you have to interact with these people, you're gonna face consequences with that.
Yeah, like when he investigates his best friend was a great part, and the fight they get into, and the way they resolve it of like, don't be weird, and then like just keep, just show me the evidence. That was great. The fight, the conflict slash love interest between the co-producer and Gail was great, and his asshole boyfriend. The following of the spray can through the house, trying to triangulate who did it. The 3D animated hand job with all the
Yeah.
viewing angles. Now I'm just listing things I liked, but there's a lot
Well,
of things that. And yeah,
the
go ahead.
sorry to cut you off. I was going to say the usage of social media and how like it felt so real the way you could piece things together like that, and the way, yeah, like you said, they're tracking the spray bottle through the party, or even that they have a nice little moment with the producer and Sam and is it Gabby? Sam and Gabby, I believe, where they could take their audio they have and put it over someone else's, drinking Instagram video. It's nice little well thought out ways to, make it seem more natural. It all really worked well. And even just getting into the teenage, like teen comedy / teen drama aspect of it, when we start to learn to get to know the filmmakers, and they're kind of like cliche nerds, but seeing them kind of come out of their shell a bit, and Peter getting suspended and hanging out with like the burnout kids, and maybe drinking a little, like that's always like a staple of those types of movies. And but it feels so real in the show, and you're still kind of rooting for him, like, yeah, man, cause a little trouble, you and your perfect attendance and your great grades, you can have a little fun.
Yeah, he gets suspended, and they're like, "Hey, we gotta celebrate with a blunt." Yeah, that's great. Oh gosh, I mean, there's so much to say, and yet we've already said a lot of it. I will say Jimmy Tartro is on the come up. I believe he's gonna be bigger. The guy who plays Dylan, he, funnily enough, has a YouTube channel that has significantly more subscribers than the Wayback Boys. He had I'm always surprised when I discover more channels that have over 1 million subscribers, and I'm like,
You like never heard of him?
yeah, that happens all the time because a million used to be a big deal. Same on Twitter and everything. But no, I mean, it's still a big deal, but there's like we're so out of the loop. We're so not connected to the teens. We don't know about this stuff. But I like Jimmy. I like he obviously brought something to it that without him the show would have like it's like imagining Back to the Future without Michael J. Fox. I can't imagine a lot of actors nailing this as hard as he did. Obviously, there could have been other good ones, but I mean, he does it very well and brings sort of a lovable doofus character to the next level with the way he embodies this character.
Yeah, because he could almost be like they have a nice line where because he could almost be a bully jock like asshole,
Hmm.
but he's more a lovable loser. Even if he's terrorizing his neighbor, you're still kind of like, all right. Or even if he's farting on babies, you're you're just kind of like, oh, Dylan, that's just Dylan. Another day, another dick.
Yes. And like the YouTube channel The Wayback Boys is also like it's not funny because it's funny because it's ridiculous, but it's also because we recognize it in a way. Like it's this stupidity that feels like something you would have done when you were younger, you know? And like they're not like it's not that much larger than life. They didn't feel the need to make it into something totally unbelievable and make the joke about that. Rather, it's about like it's a joke about how dumb it is. I love the closed captions. I don't know if you watched it with subtitles, but when they do baby farting, it just says farts then laughs, and then as they run away, because they fart on babies and run away. That's the whole bit. Like I will say, there's a bit more sophistication to Life According to Jimmy, which is his real YouTube channel with 2.7 million subscribers. And I haven't watched a lot of it. I watched a little bit, and I'm impressed because people still make sketches. I thought sketches were dead, Jim. They make sketches, and they have all people watching them and everything. I'm good for you. Good for you, Jimmy.
Yeah, good for you, man. Sketches. I mean, I could have sworn that Vine killed the sketch, but
Yeah,
maybe Vine's dead, so the sketch got revenge. Revenge of the sketch.
could be, could be. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you said, I mean, there's we've kind of said a lot. I mean, the only other thing would be we just be going through stuff like this was great, this was
yeah,
great, this was great, but you know, it hits well on the comedy, and it has the perfect balance where they could just be going just for the joke all the time, but there's a nice balance of like, funny and mystery, and you care about these people and you care about their drama and you want to see where it goes. Now, I mean, they've talked about maybe doing a season 2, I guess, but
yeah.
the cynic in me is like, don't do it. You don't do it. But then again, if they made it, I'd be very excited for it. So, I know that's the double-edged sword for you.
Yeah, it is. I would say like don't get too excited, but still get kind of excited. I feel like the reason it could work is like it's obvious what they would do, which is to take the same documentary crew and make it about a different crime, and that's also what they've said. But even if they hadn't said that, that is still what I assume would happen because that's a natural continuation, and that's why I feel like whatever they do in season 2 wouldn't ruin season 1 because it's not like we're going to be going with Dylan to fucking college or whatever. Like, we're not going to ruin season 1 in season 2. Even if it doesn't hit as hard or as well, I still see that they could do, like, there's a natural way of continuing it, which I would look forward to. Still, with all the trepidation we were saying before of a show being great, and then we weren't worried too much about how they're going to, top it. But as they've also said in interviews, like I don't know about none of this, but they do say there's a lot of tropes to this genre that they haven't even like gotten their hands on yet because they kind of had to settle on a tone and make it very specific what they were doing. And they've said in interviews that like there's this type of documentaries, like new ones are coming out all the time, and there's been some big ones since they did like start shooting and making this, and they already have very clear ideas about what they would like to get into. And like they've proven, despite coming from Funny or Die, that they have a good sense of humor. So in this case, I'm more relying on that than on like them being able to do like another great story like this one. I don't know. I feel like they could do something good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the very least, they have my trust from these 8 episodes, which, shouldn't have worked, and it worked. So if they have, like you said, if they have tropes they want to attack, and they can come at it again with the same type of focus, and I would love to see these characters again. So I can't be too against it.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, that's what you mentioned about attacking tropes, that's true, but it's also clear to me, having not consumed much of this genre, how much they also love this genre. They're clearly not coming at it from the outside. They clearly have watched these shows and enjoyed them, but then also see things to make fun of. And I think that's like obviously the best way to make a parody, rather than like, ew, I hate that song, let's make it about farting or whatever. Like that's a bad direction to come from, but this is a direction of like love and elevation and poking fun at it from within. So that's all very good. I would like to mention as well, there's still a deal happening, a limited time offer where you can go and leave a review on iTunes for Shows What You Know. And if you mention a show you want us to talk about, we're going to do an episode on it. Due to reviews left by our listeners, we're going to have an episode coming up on The Good Place and on Hannibal. If you want to get one of your favorite shows in there, or least favorite, just go and leave a review to add Shows What You Know on iTunes, everybody.
Yes, and make sure you give us the old follow on Twitter.
We just remembered we had one.
Yeah. That's Shows What You Know on Twitter, but do not spell out YOU. It just shows what letter you know. I know that's
so
a little
simple.
confusing, but there's a character limit, not just on tweets, but on your Twitter handle. But you'll find it. You'll see it.
Once again, that's Shows What You Know, you spelt with a U.
Yes. And of course, you can find more of Jacob at awesomepedia.org. And you can find more from me at jimandthem.com, and subscribe to our YouTube. Thank you.
Yes, and by the way, our YouTube, you can actually go to, and I realized this recently, you can go to youtube.com/showswhatyouknow. Just spelled out. Spell you as you usually spell you, not the letter. Oh gosh, we've really painted ourselves.
Too many things. We're throwing too many things at them.
Well, that's true. But there's also youtube.com/Jim Darko and youtube.com/Awesomepedia. Those should also work, I think. So check those out, everybody. Okay, Later, everybody.
Peace.